the auto industry overcame severe headwinds this year to eke out another sales gain in the United States. But will they be able to survive the European debt crisis and a possible downturn in China and the other emerging markets? Joining us now from Detroit is auto analyst Jim Hall. He's a principal of 2953 Analytics. Good morning, Jim.
Hi, Scarlett. How are you?
Good. Now, which car makers end 2011 in the best position to lead in 2012?
Well, to lead, I'd say you're talking Ford, General Motors. Chrysler's in a position where its year-over-year gains in 2012 are going to be rather spectacular. And part of that's a low baseline, but new product. The guys who are going to have to work the hardest are actually going to be probably Honda and Toyota because of the problems they had last year in Japan with the tsunami and the earthquake. And then Honda had some problems in Thailand with flooding.
What about the luxury car business? Because that's something that we don't talk about as much, given that Ford and General Motors have been focusing on these small, fuel-efficient vehicles. What kind of outlook is there for the luxury car business if China is seen slowing down?
Well, as you may be aware, a lot of the European manufacturers have done very well in China with their luxury brands. In the United States, unless we get a nice, strong recovery, a lot of people who can afford to buy luxury cars are deciding not to. So it could be tough for them. Now, on the other hand, you have some of the manufacturers that are refreshing their entry-level products. And in the case of BMW, their highest volume car, the 3 Series, is going to be new early next calendar year. And they will market it. So we see some upside for them there. But it may come at the expense of Lexus and Mercedes with their own comparable products. It's going to be a tough year next year because, we're talking about a recovery, but it's got to be a strong recovery to really help all of the automakers.
Right. Shannon Pettypiece, our reporter, was giving us some stats earlier saying that the median age of cars in the United States is over 10 years, almost 11 years. Cars, as you know, are being built better all the time, so they last longer as well. How long can people really put off buying a new car before they finally have to cave in and replace their current car?
If we're talking about replacing because you have to replace it, the turn rate, which used to sit at around between 30 and 37 months, depending upon which segment you were in, is probably up in the 40s now and is going to stay that way for a while because cars are built better. This doesn't bode well for people or companies that sell to people who are buying another version of their current car. It does bode well, though, for entry-level manufacturers who are trying to get new buyers. And that's another reason I think you're going to find Hyundai Kia strong in 2012, because that's a big part of their market. So the aging cars, it's a problem. But when you find that a lot of your 401k vaporized over the last few years and you can keep the car another year and not buy a new one, let's put that money back in our savings. It's what a lot of the boomers and the Gen Xers are doing.
Right. New products, though, could get them excited. You have a good sense of what companies are working on new, exciting products. What are you most excited about?
Well, in the domestics, I got to say the Dodge Dart, which is the first product that's the fruit of the Fiat Chrysler tie-up, is a very impressive car. It's an entry-level car, and it has a tremendous amount of incremental potential for Chrysler. Ford is just on a roll with their products, and they've got a new Fusion coming out, which is their volume car. And I suspect that vehicle is also going to be in a position to do very, very well. In Japan, Toyota introduced a new Camry earlier this year. As supplies get better, you might see them in a position to increase their share some. It's an interesting part, but it's predominantly the big moves are going to be in the mid-size and the entry level, I think, from a volume standpoint. Increases of volume, I should say.
Okay, what about the European operations? They've been a big drag for certain U.S. car makers, notably General Motors. Ford has done a little bit better with its European operations. Is the expected slowdown, some people say the current recession in Europe, going to hold people back, even if there are exciting new models to get them more interested?
Yeah, in Europe it's going to be a problem, especially because it looks like availability of financing for cars could get very tight. And this is because of the interlinking of the banks and the fact that you've had let's say some capital generated by state banks, and it's made some international banks less interested in funding down there. So you find a situation where, a lot of those cars are built in Germany or Brussels, Belgium, and if they get shipped down to Italy, financing could be tough for some of those makes, specifically Ford and very specifically General Motors.
Okay. Speaking of Ford, I can't get away without asking you about succession planning at Ford. Alan Mulally, the CEO, is about 66 years old. There have been reports of Ford putting together a list of candidates. Is this a big overhang for the company?
It's definitely something that a lot of analysts are looking at. And if you think about it, the succession plan you've got to have underway anyway, because what if Alan is golfing and gets hit by a bolt of lightning? So they have to have some idea of who's available in the company. I'm sure they have an idea, but remember, you serve as the CEO of Ford at the pleasure of the Ford family. And so the decision's going to be made there, and I don't think we're going to get a lot of leaks beforehand. But there's no doubt about it. It's something the company does have to concern itself with, definitely.
Right. And shareholders as well. Thank you so much. Jim Hawley, principal at 2953 Analytics, joining us from Detroit.